please.
Thank you. Good luck.
We'd like to call to order the regular City Commission meeting for March 6, 2018. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle. Commissioner Drosky.
Here.
Commissioner Farnes.
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Here.
Mayor Gantz.
Here. Before we do a moment of silence, unfortunately, and this is becoming far too routine for my liking, we've had several prominent deaths here in the city of Deerfield Beach. First with the beloved brother of our colleague, Commissioner Gloria Battle. Her brother Eugene Battle passed away. Mr. James Benefield, who is a longtime Deerfield Beach resident, a frequent speaker here at the commission meetings, and a Vietnam War veteran, passed away over the weekend. Pastor Willie J. Ford from Bethlehem Church, not only a longtime city of Deerfield Beach resident, but was the pastor for 45 years at Bethlehem Church, passed away. And Mr. Dan Bogner, who was a longtime, not only resident of the city of Deerfield Beach, but a longtime city employee. He was a volunteer at our Deerfield Beach Historical Society, and is one of the two people that really got our caboose project that we have right outside here going, passed away as well. So as we do our moment of silence, if we could please think of the four of them. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have approval of the City Commission meeting minutes for February 6, 2018.
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes unanimously. We have acknowledgement of the city board minutes for the non-uniform employees retirement committee meeting minutes for November 13th, 2017. The community redevelopment agency meeting minutes for January 9th, 2018.
Motion to approve acknowledge those city board minutes. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes unanimously. We have approval of the city commission agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. City Attorney, quasi-judicial public hearings?
We have quasi-judicial hearings. There are two of them. So anyone who's going to speak on items 1 or 2, would you please stand up and let me administer the oath? Do you solemnly swear the testimony about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, having done that, I'm going to call each one of you and then ask whether you wish to waive the quasi-judicial process that is offered to you. That means you're waiving the right to cross-examination and the more formal process. Still have a full opportunity to present your case, and the public will still have the opportunity to call. I'm going to call case number 1, which is Hotel Deerfield LLC, if the applicant here. So would you please state your name, your representation, and whether you wish to waive the quasi-judicial hearing.
Good evening, Alicia Lewis with the law firm of Greenspoon Martyr, 200 East Broward Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on behalf of the applicant for item 1, and I do want to waive the quasi-judicial proceedings. Excuse me.
Staff want to present? Or would the applicant present?
The applicant did prepare a brief presentation.
Okay. If we could see the presentation, please.
Turn on the side. Should be green.
Okay. Good evening again. Sorry for the sit down and getting back up. Again, my name is Alicia Lewis, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We are requesting a site plan approval and a conditional use approval for a hotel located in the Hillsborough Technology Center, just to familiarize you with the location. There we go. Okay, so again, this is the subject property. Again, it's part of the Hillsborough Technology Center. And this specifically is the actual site. So this is the site where the hotel is proposed to be located. This is just to give you an idea of the actual size of the property. It's approximately 2.81 acres, I believe. But this is just, again, giving you a generalized view of the property. So again, we're requesting major site plan approval, and it's a 4-story Fairfield Inn and Suites. It will have 101 hotel rooms with required parking being provided, a pool deck, and open space as well. And again, it's approximately 2.81 acres, the entire parcel, and it's located within the Hillsborough Technology Center. So our second request is based off of the fact that we're located within a PID, a Planned Industrial District. I almost said it wrong. Eric, that was right, good. So a Planned Industrial District. And that master plan and the requirements of the Planned Industrial District require us to receive conditional use approval in order to have a hotel. So it's just listed as a conditional use. So that's where our conditional use is coming from, and this just gives you a brief history of the process we've already gone through with the conditional use approval. So we've been recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board, and we've also had a plat note amendment already approved for the property. And again, if you keep in mind the Hillsborough Technology Center property in general, this just gives you a background of where we are. So this is where the actual hotel will be located, and then you can see the subsequent parking surrounding the hotel. And again, it's 4 stories and 101 rooms. And here's an elevation just to give you an idea of what it would look like. And then this kind of gives you a breakdown of the floor plan, specifically of the first floor, the ground floor. So it's showing you where the dining area, the pool, the elevators, lobby, entrance, and the subject of the conference room would be as well. So that gives you an idea of how the hotel will be set up when patrons enter the hotel. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Battle.
Just very quickly, put that, your presentation with the hotel, the first one, on the, it's my right, is that abutting that neighborhood over there, or?
Are you saying does it abut the neighborhood next to the technology center?
Yes.
No, ma'am, it does
Okay.
not. It's so yeah. This is probably a better view. So the red area here, and you'll see the driveway.
So it's more towards the drive? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other commission comments before we open to the public? Not seeing anyone from the public care to comment on this item? I'm going to close the public portion to be heard. Commission comments?
I'm looking forward to voting yes after Gloria makes a motion to approve.
Motion that we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Item 2 is Antigua.
Welcome.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Antigua Investments LLC is an applicant here. And whether you wish to waive.
Good evening, Dwayne Dickerson on behalf of the applicant, attorney with the law firm Denamis Backman, offices at 14 Southeast 4th Street in Boca Raton, Florida. Yes, I do wish to waive quasi-judicial proceeding. Thank you.
Do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dickerson, before you present, if I could just remind everyone to please turn off their phones, or at least silence them. Ready when you are, sir.
Thank you. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Oceanside Condominium Project. The subject site is located on the beach just north of Hillsborough, just west of A1A on Northeast 3rd Street. And you'll see this property designated in, it's highlighted in the red on your picture. The existing land use of the property is residential high, 25 dwelling units to the acre, and the zoning is the matching RM25 residence multifamily. The acreage for the property is about 0.275 acres, and that's the gross acreage for the property. This is an existing condition. As you can see, there's a single-family home on the property, as well as a garage structure that's on the west side of the property. This is if you're south looking north. The proposed project tonight is for a 3-story multifamily residential building with 6 dwelling units. Of the 3 stories, the ground floor is the lobby and parking spaces, and then the second and third floor contain 3 residential units each. Each floor has one 1-bedroom unit and 2 2-bedroom units, once again for a total of 6 units. The front setback, which is Northeast 3rd Street, is required to be 25 feet, and we are providing the 25 feet. The east side setback is required to be 14 feet 6 inches. We're providing that 14 feet 6 inches. On the west side, the requirement is 14 feet 6 inches. We are providing 10 feet on that one, and as part of this application, we're requesting a variance, which I'll go into detail in a moment. In the rear, the requirement is 19 feet 6 inches, and we have a surplus there of 24 feet 3 inches. The parking meets code. We're required to have 11 spaces. We are providing 11 spaces. That breakdown, there are 2 1-bedroom units. Each 1-bedroom unit requires 1.5 spaces per unit, and then there are 4 2-bedroom units, and each one of those units require 2 spaces per unit for a total of 11. This is the site plan, also showing the ground floor area. As you can see, to your right is the south, and to your left is the north. The top is east, and the bottom is west. You'll enter from the south. You'll see that there's parking. Of the 11 spaces, 9 of the spaces are on the east side, and then 2 of the spaces are located on the west side. You can also see the dimensions for the setbacks. Once again, the rear is the 24 feet 3, which is the top left, and then the front is the 25. The side on the east is 14 6 inches, and on the south is the 10 feet. This is a typical floor plan. You can see the 3 units on the floor plan. The 2-bedroom units have 2 rooms, 2 baths, and then the 1-bedroom units, of course, 1 bath and the 1 bedroom. These are some of the elevations, proposed elevations and renderings of the building. This is the south elevation. This is the east elevation. As you can see, the balconies on this side are facing east towards the ocean. Of course, we want to take advantage of the ocean views, and also we felt it was more appropriate to have the balconies overlooking the east as opposed to the west, where there are a single-family residential home. And then this is the north. So on the left, the yellowish portion would be the north side, and then on the right side of the white portion would be the west elevation. We are meeting all the code requirements, so it will be heavily landscaped. The site is over 40% green area. We meet all the parking requirements. We're well below the height. Like I said, the only variance is that 1 side setback. So briefly, just go over the variance. It's code section 98-61, which is the side setback for the west. So the code as a base in the RM25 requires a 10-foot side setback. However, once you go over 20 feet, you are required to provide another 1 foot of setback for every 2 additional feet in height. So because we're going to 29 feet instead of the 20, that additional 9 feet requires the additional 4 feet 6 inches in setback on the west. We are providing it on the east, but we aren't able to provide it on the west, and I'll explain to you why. As you are aware, your code section 98-116 has very specific criteria with respect to approval of variances. First criteria is that there is a special condition or circumstance that exists that's peculiar to the land or structure of the building involved. And so this property, like a lot of the properties on the beach, was platted quite a long time ago. The name of the plat is the Ocean View Plat. It was approved in November of 1923. So the lots were platted. Some of the lots are only 50 feet. Ours happens to be 75 feet, but none of them are conforming with your current code. And our lot width is 75 feet. The depth is approximately 135 feet. So per the development regulations for the zoning district RM25, you have to have a minimum lot width of 100 feet. So as you can see at the very beginning, with nothing to do with the applicant, and no fault of the applicant, the plat is inconsistent with the zoning code and the land use regulations of the RM25. And so with the inconsistency, that has some development challenges that we were able to overcome for the most part, except for that 4 feet 6 inch variance that we're requesting. Of course, the second prong is that there's special conditions or circumstance not resulting from the action of the applicant. I don't think the applicant was around in 1923, neither was I, so neither one of us had anything to do with the fact that the platted lots are so small and inconsistent with the RM25 zoning district, which is the current code there. So that was a non-self-inflicted hardship with that conflict, and the request tonight for the variance does bring that conflict into conformance. And by the way, speaking of conformance, so it is considered a legally non-conforming lot. And what that means is, even though the lot is 75 feet and the code requires 100, you have a code provision, which is 98-71, entitled Lot Regulations, that does look at situations like this in their irregularity and does allow for property owners and developers to still move forward with development of the lot, even though it's under the 100-foot minimum. And what it does say is lots of record not meeting minimum lot dimensions. The title and says any lot or parcel of record which qualifies as a lot of record as set forth in a recorded plat, which I just listed the plat, but does not comply in all respects with the minimum lot area and lot dimensions specified for the zoning district in which it is located, may nonetheless be used as long as it complies with all the other requirements, which I said we do, except for this variance that we're requesting. So this is no special privilege that's conferred to this applicant. Prong D is with respect to the literal interpretation of the provisions of this code and whether they would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by other property owners. You know, of course, designing a building with these inconsistencies that we discuss makes it very difficult, and it really would call for an insufficient building of the lot. So, and particularly in this multifamily dwelling unit zoning district, the building that would result would be way more of a nuisance than our building and be very difficult to design and park and landscape properly. So not granting the variance, we believe, would prevent the project from being developed on this lot and would place an undue hardship on the property owner and the applicant. E is the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land. As you've heard, the variance is less than 5 feet. So it's a minimal variance request given the circumstances, and the building meets all other setback code requirements, landscaping, and even exceeds them in several regards. So it is the minimum variance. And the last prong is, the last requirement is F, that the grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this code, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved and otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. As you saw with the existing condition of the site, this will be a substantial upgrade. We've heard some positive feedback as we've done our community outreach that several folks are looking forward to this development and upgrading the community and all the things that come with that in terms of other adjacent properties. So the building height is 29 feet, and the RM25 zoning district by right permits 55 feet in height. So as you can tell, we're more than 25 feet below what by right the height of the building can be, and we exceed the 40% of landscaping, and we meet parking and all those things. So it is a very solid design. It is a very reasonable design so that it is not obnoxious to adjacent neighbors, and we believe it will be nothing but a benefit to the community. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and Mayor, if I may reserve a few moments to respond to any comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any commission comments?
Yes, I make a comment that I'm looking forward to make a motion to approve this after we hear the public.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, Commissioner Battle?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want you to go back over for me, Mr. Dickerson, the parking,
Yes, ma'am.
because you said something that was quite unique, and if it may mean us having to go and do some other things. 1.5 cars. I quite frankly can't see where we're going to get that 0.5 car. But we're saying we're going to give a variance to have 1.5 cars per. Explain that to me.
Yes, ma'am. We do meet parking, so we are meeting the code required parking of 11 spaces, and the 1.5 becomes an average, and it's based on the number of units and the type of units. So if it's a one-bedroom, you're going to have some people that live in a one-bedroom unit that only have one car, and you're going to have some people that live in a one-bedroom unit that have two cars. That's how you get the average of the 1.5 cars because of that variation. And then once you get to the two-bedroom, you're going to assume that each person in the room is going to have a vehicle. So that two-bedroom unit requires two parking spaces rather per unit. So that's how that number is calculated, and we meet the parking. So we are not asking for any waivers or variances with respect to parking.
And there are no contingencies for guests or anything like that?
Well, so the units do have, this is the standard modern design. A lot of the newer development, obviously they don't want excessive asphalt. On your beaches, you want to create walkability and pedestrian-friendly developments, so you don't want to have excess parking to where you're encouraging people to drive instead of ride their bike and use mass transit. So you'll find that a lot of the modern developments are reducing their parking as much as possible to encourage other forms of getting around that don't involve the vehicle.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Grosky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I first wanted to disclose that I have spoken with counsel for the applicant before tonight's meeting. And that's primarily because it should be no secret by now that I'm a stickler when it comes to these variances. And I wanted to know and discuss, what is the hardship as it relates to this property, not what is the developer's hardship, but how does it relate to the property. And I do believe one exists in this case, and I'm glad that Mr. Dickerson put a detailed, mind-numbing variance presentation together. That the RM25, our code, imposes a minimum lot width of 100 feet, yet this was platted for 75 feet. So this is through no fault of the developer. We're imposing a code that just didn't exist at the time onto this lot size. So I would be in favor of this project having met the variance requirement.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from the commission before we open to the public? Just a quick question for you, Mr. Dickerson. I attended the P&Z meeting in which you made the presentation there. What is the property that is to the east of this project right now?
Here we go. So I believe that is either triplex or quad, four. That's a 4-unit multi-family building.
And that
to
faces
the
east as well? That faces east?
Yes, sir. I believe that's correct.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the public. We have Mr. Jim Higgins speak first. If anyone else wants to speak on this item, no one else has signed up, but we can have that after Mr. Higgins speaks. Yes.
Should I state my name and address and stuff?
Please do.
Yeah. James Higgins. I own the property at 325 Northeast 20th Avenue. That's on the northwest corner of Northeast 20th Avenue and Northeast 3rd Street. I've owned that property for nearly 40 years, and my building was built in 1953, and many of the buildings in the neighborhood were built during and before the Second World War. The whole neighborhood has been stagnant, not a whole lot of development or growth for many years. I've been there 40 years, and I haven't seen much at all. Lately, I'm seeing it come to life. A lot of good things are happening there. And I really like, so far, everything I've seen. I like the building that we're talking about now. I think it's a beautiful building and a great project. I think it's taken the neighborhood, after many years of stagnation, it's taken the neighborhood in the right direction. And I hope someday, in the not too distant future, I'd like to see something like this on my property. And, I think it's a good direction to go, and it certainly is an improvement in the neighborhood, and I think in the city of Deerfield Beach. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public, please? Yes.
Rita Massey, 349 Northeast 19th Avenue. I'm very, very pleased with this project. I think it's going to make a big difference to the whole area. It's going to uplift an almost half-sad situation in our neighborhood at the moment, so I'm very happy for it. Now, I want to ask a question. You called Bill because he signed up, but I thought that was you only have to sign up if you speak for, regular. You have to sign up even if you speak for these things?
I'll explain that to you once you sit down.
Thank you.
That's by the rules. Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes.
Marge Hilton, 1101 Southeast 5th Court. I think this is a very nice project, and I approve of it, and it's all by code, and the variance was accepted, so I'm for it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Martine Mears, 1961 Northeast 3rd Street. I am the owner to the left of this property. I have owned the property for almost 20 years, and I hope I'll be there for at least another 20 years. I really like living in the neighborhood.
I'm sorry, ma'am, when you say to the left, that means to the west of it?
To the west.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Originally, I've met with the owners now, the developers, and I've met with the architect, and I've met with the attorney. And originally, I didn't think the variance would be a big deal, the 4.5 feet that they're asking for. But I was basing that on the garage that's currently there now, which is less than 3 feet from my fence line, my property line. I've spent a lot of time in my yard lately, more than I usually do, which is a lot. And I've walked it, and it's occurring to me that 3 stories is a lot different than 1 story. I mean, 9.5 feet from my fence line, from my property line, would have been a bonus for me compared to what I have now, if it was 1 story. But we're talking 3 stories, so I really feel like it's going to be a hardship for me personally. It's going to negatively impact my quality of life, having this 3-story monster next to me. It's a beautiful building, it is. I knew sooner or later this was going to happen. I mean, I know that I'm zone R25, and I knew that when I bought it, and that's fine. But I think taking that extra 4.5 feet is really going to impact me, my quality of life.
Okay.
It's going to change the ambiance. I'd also request a correction on the legal description. It says Tolman Pines. It's Ocean View.
I think,
What's an error?
thank you for the note.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would just like to question the 2.75 acres, because I believe my property is 2.3 acres. I don't know if it makes any difference. 0.23 rather.
Yes, thank you.
And I believe we have the exact same property size.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Will Harmon, 1134 Island Drive, Delray Beach, and my wife and I own the property on the east, and we're opposed to the project because we feel like that we're not opposed to development, but they should build within the law, the exact law. They shouldn't get a variance because everybody else has to go by the law. Why should they? So that's our point. And I have a letter here from my wife stating the same thing if you want it, but we are opposed based on that.
So okay, thank you.
My name is Patrick Neely, and I'm a resident on the east side, a tenant of Will Harmon's. I'm his brother-in-law, and I live in the first unit, apartment 1. I'm opposed to it because I'm real concerned about parking. Presently, we have a serious parking problem on the street. I'm constantly having to remove cars from the parking spots that we have in the front of our building. Now we have, right on the corner, we have 21 bedrooms being built. That's been, what now, 2 years it's been being built. And the concern is that I don't feel they have, going over there and counting, I don't feel they have enough parking. So to have 21 bedrooms on the corner that's 19th and 3rd, now having this unit that doesn't have any provisions for guest parking, I think it's a serious problem. So I'm opposing for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public on this item? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close the public portion to be heard. Commission comments, before we bring up the applicant again?
Yeah, before I make a motion
Hold
to...
on, Vice Mayor, we have a light system, I'm sorry, I'm going to go with Commissioner Parnas, please, then Vice Mayor.
We went over the variances, I believe, at the first reading, and we were satisfied that it would be good for the neighborhood. There were many speakers from the neighborhood who came to the first reading and said the project is good for their neighborhood. And I accept that. Tonight we have a split, 3 opposed, 3 for. And I'll go by the first reading of the beach people, and that's not a negative comment. You people live on the beach. I think this is a good project, and I will support it.
I'll just remind the commission, if this is a variance, it will require an affirmative vote of 4 commissioners.
Right. Vice Mayor Miller?
I sure hope my commission is going to have all 4 votes, possibly, I hope 5 votes. I love the fact that they're not up 55 feet, which they're allowed to do. Matter of fact, they don't go to the north as far as they could, almost same 5 feet that they're are needing on the west side. So if you took the average, they're totally, completely in compliance, but technically they're not in compliance. We're talking about a 75-year-old building being replaced by a modern, tax-paying units. This is very positive for the city. And as far as not enough parking, that is the trend nowadays. And in fact, because there's less parking spaces, there's more green space. And we're concerned about water runoff and such. The more green space, the better. And if the travelers need to take an Uber from the airport to visit their relatives and walk to the beach and bicycle around, so be it. This is an improvement to the neighborhood, as the stakeholders have said. Sure, not everybody could be happy, but I live on the island. I think this is an excellent addition to the island. And as Jim Higgins said, this area has been stagnant for many years, and now people are looking to invest in it. This is an upgrade to the island, and I want to make a motion to approve.
Before you make the motion, I have a couple more comments, if that's all right, Vice Mayor. Thank you. I was at the P&Z meeting when this was first presented. I'm assuming that that's what Commissioner Parnas is referencing. We talked about first reading on this. But I was at the P&Z meeting when this was presented, and the one neighbor who did speak was for it at that time and has a different opinion. But if we look at what the code would allow there, taking away the variance right now, this could be a higher project. It fits the parking. There's no parking variance allowed here. So the parking that's allowed is the parking that would be allowed if there wasn't a variance. Take away the variance request, this project, we would be hard pressed to turn this down.
No, if you took away the variance request, it would meet all the requirements and would require approval.
It would require approval at that point, so that would take away our argument on it. So I understand that, I completely understand the concern about parking, and we all know that people, they rarely come in 1 or 2 cars. They bring multiple, but it's within the law is what I'm stating. It's basically within our ordinance. It is allowed, the parking that's there. They're not asking for a parking variance. So while I understand the concern, it is within what they're allowed when it comes to the parking. As far as opposing a variance just because someone shouldn't have a variance, everybody has the right to come before us to request the variance. The variance that's being requested here, they have proven their hardship. So just like anyone else who would come before us and they have proven hardship, that does open the door for allowing a variance on this. I think the big concern for the neighbor to the west, and based on the comments that I heard at the P&Z and the comments that I'm hearing tonight, is really the height more than anything else. Because if you don't grant that right now, as was stated, where that building is going to be situated compared to where the building exists now, there definitely is a little bit more space there. The issue is as you go up, it changes their view. That's what changes. If you take away this 4.5 feet, let's say they're well below the height limit. They could go 1 story higher. They say they might be able to go 2, but I think that's probably unrealistic depending on the width. But 4.5 feet is approximately 2.5 chairs. That's the difference we're making. That difference isn't, as you go up, isn't going to make a huge difference as far as the impact on the neighbors. So if we were to say take away the variance and they did go up, I think that would have that would probably have a worse impact on the people next to them, in my opinion. I understand and I respect that they have concerns, but there are limits based on the zoning. They could go higher, take away the 4.5 feet, we wouldn't be able to stop the project. So my understanding is I did meet with the applicant as well before this, and I know that they were trying to make some concessions to have, trying to work with the neighbors. Before we take a vote on this, and if the vote passes, I want to at least give those neighbors, I want to hold the applicant to those offers that they made to those neighbors. I don't want them walking away from here, and should this be defeated, and it sounds like there's at least pretty close to approval here, based on at least 2 of them publicly saying how they're going to vote. I want at least those residents that have concerns about this are going to walk away with something here. So whatever was offered, I don't know the details of the discussions. I would like to see the applicant hold to that in doing something, whether it be an increase in their landscaping, some sort of design that can be put on the side of the building to help enhance it and lessen the impact on the neighbors. Because if they had said, yes, we'll take what you're offering, and said that they approved this project, you wouldn't have an issue. So I don't want you walking away empty-handed if this gets approved as it is. We're talking 4.5 feet, and they could go a lot higher. Take that away, there's nothing stopping this project. So I understand the support for it. I do support it as well. Any other commission comments? We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Let me make some comments.
Commissioner Battle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I am concerned about the parking, and I understand about the green spaces going to come in, I also understand about them meeting the code, and this is not having to do with parking at all. I do think as a body that we need to examine that 1.5 car internally to see whether or not that really makes sense. And I understand that we're trying to get people out of cars and onto bicycles or whatever the case may be, but that's not a reality here in South Florida because our mass transit is so bad. So we need, as a body, to really examine this, Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Manager, to see whether or not we need to make a change to that 1.5 car. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Battle. If the applicant could come up and at least put it on record that they're willing to work with the neighbors to try to lessen the impact.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Dwayne Dickerson again on behalf of the applicant. We absolutely have done a substantial community outreach. We did meet with the neighbor to the west as late as today, and we will continue to work with that neighbor as we move through our final design process and into building, whether that be additional landscaping that may be helpful, whether that may be some architectural features that are on that western side of the building. Of course, as long as that's administrative, and I think we can work with Mr. Power and make sure that that's an administrative change to any plan, as long as it's not material in nature, I think we should be fine.
What you're saying, as long as it does not require coming back for approval.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So as long as that's fine, Mayor, you have our commitment to continue to work with the neighbors and see if we can mitigate further any of their concerns.
And just to make the point again, this project, take away that 4.5 feet, this project at the height limit, you're not going to stop the height. It could be, if your issue is with the height, your issue is going to be the height of this project no matter what. Take away the 4.5 feet, it's still going to be a height issue for you. And you're coming in a lot less than what you could. You could add an entire another story to this project. So, and possibly two, though I doubt it. So if your issue is height with this, this is well below the height limitations on this project. So I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I agree with my neighbor that 1.5 parking spaces is hard to imagine. But, you know, that'll be a challenge for the developer because that means less people will be willing to buy this. But if they're willing to invest the money in our city and believe there's still a marketplace for a condo walking distance to the beach and that only has one parking space for their unit, I believe they are willing to invest, and I'm willing to back them. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes?
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Thank you.
Ruby?
We are now on the public hearings. An ordinance, City Commission, City of Deerfield Beach, reviewing ordinance number 2010-34, restating and confirming section 98.13F of the City of Deerfield Beach Land Development Code as being in full force and effect, provide for building permit and inspection to be adopted by resolution. This is a second reading, it was discussed thoroughly at first reading. But the second reading.
Any comments from the commission? Not seeing any. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? You might want to wait for the traffic to get through. Still conducting a meeting, thank you. Item number 3, anyone from the public care to speak? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close it to the public for item number 3.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? Yes. Commissioner Drosky?
Yes?
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Next is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach approving the amended building permit fee schedule as attached as Exhibit A, providing for severability, conflict, and effective date. Again, this was the subject of a discussion at the last meeting, and this is the fee schedule.
Anyone from the public care to comment on item 3A? What's your name and address for the record, please?
Richard Rosenzweig, 97 Farnham E, Deerfield Beach. I'm hoping this schedule will bring up our permitting and our other things into line with what is going on in the area. I think we're way below on our fee schedules currently, and the cost of doing business is something that we do look and address a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public care to comment? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close the public portion to be heard. Commissioner Drosky?
I think my question, I mean, it may relate more to 3 than to 3A, but they all tie together. I had a resident at the last meeting who asked a question who I don't think received a response or a full response to his question regarding how the building department fees relate to the general fund. If there could be some clarification, please.
City Manager?
Yes. Mr. Power? Yeah, go ahead. And I'll have Mr. Duncan come up and we'll address how we'll deal with it. So, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Gans, Vice Mayor Miller, members of the City Commission. The building department funds are incorporated into the general fund. However, those fees are essentially offset by the relevant expenditures, which are approximately 85% that goes to the third-party vendor, the remaining 15%, which this year, fiscal 2017, amounts to approximately $700,000, which, when we look at the overhead costs, which include occupancy costs, utilities, other overhead costs, such as Mr. Powers' expenses, we essentially believe that it's a wash. So it covers the fees. The fees covers the related expenses. And all of those are accounted for in the general fund. It is our goal, however, in the upcoming fiscal year to create a separate and identifiable fund, which will be a sub-fund of the general fund that you could view on a monthly basis to look at the costs and the related revenues for the building function.
City Manager?
Actually, Hugh addressed it out. I just wanted to make sure he was going to address about the potential for an enterprise fund, which will have to be approved by the City Commission for the upcoming fiscal year.
Mr. Attorney, do you have a way to wrap that up even
Well, yeah,
more
and just
succinctly?
by statute, the building permit fees are to be kind of a self-generating fund. The fees are to pay for the cost of undertaking the functions of the building department, which include inspections, which include Eric's time, which include sometimes my time, which include housing the inspectors here at City Hall and all of those costs. And that's what it was calculated to do. We feel very confident that it does do that, and it's not a profit center, it's just to pay for itself and do nothing more.
So regardless of who does it, it should only be, whatever we charge, it should be enough to cover what our expenses are.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Likewise.
Commissioner Drosky, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We're looking for a motion here.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? Yes. Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
The next item is for public comment. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary stability shall be permitted. Everyone is entitled to 3 minutes on an item that is not on the agenda.
First up, we have Mr. Glenn Sullivan, followed by Juliana Savino, and followed by Rita Massa.
Good evening, Glenn Sullivan, 2377 Deer Creek Trail, Deerfield Beach, Florida. The commission and the city staff regularly tells us about nearby or adjoining cities and trying to be consistent. So I took the opportunity to look at some of the adjoining cities, and I would like to make some comments that this city should consider in a manner of transparency. Pompano Beach has a detailed strategic plan and reports quarterly on progress using metrics and data. They post that to their website. Coral Springs provides monthly financial statements on their website for citizen review. Actually, our ordinance section 3892 requires the city manager to provide the commissioners this same financial statement, and I think it would be beneficial to put that on the city website also, again, for transparency. Margate uses Measure Up Margate program to measure the city's performance with quarterly reports. So I think looking at nearby cities and their transparency, there are some good ideas that citizens can benefit from that. Also, I'd like to comment about the last meeting we had on the bond. There was a really great opportunity for the city to be very transparent on data. We had questioned the cost of the various projects. at a previous meeting, and we were given a nice 8 or 9 page briefing detailing a lot of the things that went into the estimate. We weren't shown the estimate, but we were told what went into coming up with the numbers for that. At this meeting, without any details, we were given updated estimates. One was 40% more than the original, another was 25% more, with absolutely no details. And I really question the judgment of the commission to just take that without a question. $6.5 million of debt without any questions on estimates. Then there was the $4.3 million to pay interest. I personally don't believe in borrowing to pay debt, but here we go. And I think the only reason for that was to keep it level so that the city manager and the commission wouldn't have to make tough decisions on prioritizing costs or in the end raising millage rates. So we took $4.3 million of debt so that it was easier to manage our budgets. That's not a good thing to do. So we've saddled our community with additional debt.
Next up, we have Juliana Savino.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you all for your service to the city of Deerfield Beach. It's a beautiful, wonderful city to live in and also invest in. However, I have a problem that I've been trying to receive attention from the Sheriff's Department. I've been trying to contact them several times and unfortunately not been able to accomplish this. I've requested, I know it's a bad timing, what with Parkland, etc. I understand they're busy, but we here in this city have our problems also. So I've been trying to request an appointment with Captain Schankenberger, who is the captain of our local precinct. I had no reply from him. Also been trying to get to Scott Israel. I know he's busy. I've spoken to his secretary a few weeks ago, actually February 27th, and they told me that they would get back to me. I know that this is a serious situation that's in our neighborhood where I have investment property. If I'm allowed to give the address, I will. I have substantiating evidence from tenants and property owners around us, and I think it desires a little bit more attention than everyday patrols. It's a blighted area. The address is 274 Southeast 9th Avenue in Deerfield Beach. The animal control has been out there at least 17 times. Any patrolman in that area, if he gets a call, automatically knows where to go. He doesn't have to be given directions. So I think we need to do something about this. There's a lot of illegal activity which I have witnesses ready to testify about, and it seems like it's a blighted property, and we should be able to bring our properties around it and maintain the schedule. However, I'm finding that I'm having hardships keeping tenants because of the constant noise, fighting, etc. The ambulance are there 3 and 4 times a week. I feel sorry for the wasted funds of the fire department and the police department. They go out, every time they go out in jeopardy. And I think this is not, there should be amount time, how many calls somebody could go to one property before it becomes an attention getter to the city. And there should be fines levied, if nothing else. I mean, I want to sit down and I want to talk to the police department to see if we can work up a program. It says, see something, say something. I have written evidence from all the tenants of mine, plus everyone around that owns property, and yet nothing is getting done. And I question why, okay? So if we could have somebody look into this matter, I'd be willing to meet with anyone, which I had told Scott Israel's secretary I would be available at any time. No callback. I mean, I know maybe they're having something going on, maybe they're having undercover work, I don't know. But I was having a concern, okay? Thank you.
Next up, we have Rita Massey.
Rita Massey, 349 Northeast 19th Avenue. I'd like to know who was the brainchild who decided to put the workout equipment and the post on Southeast 18th Avenue, a road where is a dead end, it dead ends to the Intracoastal and a little waterway. Very, very few cars go there. It happens to be an affluent area. Why do we have to supply workout material for an affluent area? Do we have the same kind of workout equipment in district is the word I was looking, in District 2? We would be better off doing something like that there. I am just besides myself the amount of money that was spent there. It's never going to be used, and why was it done? I don't understand it. We had the park coming in from Boca. There's nothing to mark that park. And on a dead-end street, you have this beautiful monument that says Deerfield Beach. I think we're going backwards, and you're spending my tax money foolishly. So I'd like somebody to tell me why that was put there, and I hope we're not going to put any more of those things in areas like that, because it's senseless. Nobody's going to use them. Does anybody know who put it there and why?
Thank you, Ms. Massey.
You're welcome. Now make me happy. Tell me why.
Anyone else from the public care to comment? Not seeing anyone, we close the public portion to be heard. So just to address a couple of the things that are on there, my understanding is that when it comes to the bond issue, there were questions and there were explanations as far as where there was an increase. Maybe not as detailed as the gentleman would like, but there were certainly some explanations as far as what the increase was. As far as borrowing money to pay debt, isn't that what was supposed to, we basically renegotiated our existing debt, so we got a lower interest rate, which saved the city $350,000?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I don't see where that policy of trying to take long-term existing debt, refinancing it, and paying that off over time at a lower interest rate to save the city $350,000 is a bad idea. I don't see where that's an issue, but apparently some people do, and that's they have their right to have that opinion. As far as your BSO issue, Chief Schnackenberger, I believe we're going with Schnackenberg. It is Chief Schnackenberg, for the record. Chief Schnackenberg is here tonight, and we will make sure that he speaks to you, Ms. Savino. Is she still here?
Yes, right here.
Ms. Savino, he is here. We'll make sure that we get that addressed. City Manager, do you have an issue with that?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
We're aware of the situation, by the way.
Okay. As far as the workout equipment in the park, and I have to admit, this is the first I've heard somebody come and complain that you've made an addition or an improvement to a park, but the point is well taken. Do you have any information on that, City Manager?
Yes, I'll let Ms. Petty, who's responsible for Parks and Recreation, discuss that, but I believe it was a partnership with the Deerfield Beach Island Community Association, and as a matter of record, the city actually does have exercise equipment in different parks throughout the city, including District 2. Ms. Massey, just be assured of that. So, Ms. Petty.
Good evening. It actually was a parks-funded project from last fiscal year. We have been placing exercise equipment throughout all districts, all different parks, to make sure that people are able to walk to their neighborhood park and be able to work out. It's an ongoing project, but that specifically is one that was brought up last fiscal year.
Was that in partnership with the Deerfield Beach Island?
No, that was parks funded. Deerfield Beach Island Community Association partnered with us on the ones on the south end of the beach by the embassy.
Thank you. Yes, City Manager.
Just quickly, also on budget transparency, right now we are updating our website, so it's not currently on there, but past fiscal years, we do have the budget transparency tool that Mr. Dunkley and his group put together about 3 years ago, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. It's very self-explanatory. There is a how-to on the city website that does allow the general public to access the city budget and to look at monthly reports, things of that nature. So thank you.
I would say I do support looking at some of the other cities are doing as far as putting information on our website to make it easily accessible for residents. Vice Mayor Miller?
I just want to weigh in on the linear park that was not on Southeast 18th Avenue, on Southeast 2nd Street near 18th Avenue. That's a long neglected linear park, and I'm very pleased to see this exercise equipment that I drive by every single day. And I understand we're going to be getting more landscaping on that park, trees, shade trees, etc. So I am very happy that the city has finally done something to this prestige location that has been, in my opinion, neglected, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. City Manager?
Yeah, just we do. Not only do we look at cities around us, we actually look at what we consider to be model cities around the country. Certainly when I go to ICMA or when Mr. Dunkley or any of his staff go to financial officer type of conferences or trainings, we certainly incorporate that into it. And I'd just like to also state that many cities are looking at Deerfield Beach for how and what we do on social media and our city website. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney?
The next, you have items 4, 5, 6, and 7 are board appointments. After opening up to the public, the commission can, by one motion, approve those items.
Just from a show of hands, does anybody want to comment on any board appointments, number 4, 5, 6, or 7? Anyone? No. Okay. So we can go ahead with a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 4, 5, and 6, and 7 appointments.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? Yes. Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Items 8 and 9 are agreements and expenditure requests, unless, after opening it up to the public, the commission could adopt 8 and 9 by a single motion if it so chooses.
Do we have someone who wanted to speak on number 8 or 9 that submitted anything? Anyone from the public, just show of hands that wanted to speak on item 8 or 9? Not seeing any, I'm going to close the public portion to be heard on that. So we have item 8 or 9. We can approach them separately or all together.
We should approach them together.
We'll need a motion.
I'd like to have a motion to approve 8 and 9.
We have a motion and a second for items number 8 and 9. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle? Yes. Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Item 10 is the resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach adopting the updated city investment policy.
City Manager, do you have any comments on this?
If you'd like, I could have the Chief Financial Officer cover any questions that the City Commission has. It's fairly straightforward.
Oh, sorry. Anyone from the public care to speak on this item number 10? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close item number 10. Commission have any comments? Any questions they have? Okay.
Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes.
Item 11 is discussion regarding the implementation of a city bike share program.
City Manager?
Yes, if it pleases the Mayor and City Commission, I do have Ms. Hillary Marshall here to give a brief presentation and discussion of the city bike share program, if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Gans, Vice Mayor Miller, City Commission. My name is Hillary Marshall. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator here with the city. And tonight I'm going to give you a brief overview of bike share programs for hope of discussion, potentially implementing something in the near future. So if you don't already know, a bike share program, by definition, is basically a service in which bikes are made available for shared use on a short-term basis and usually for relatively short distances. So bike shares are pretty similar to bike rental, but rather than being restricted to a small or specific area, These bikes are intended for getting someone from point A to point B, really focusing on that transportation aspect, but like I said, for shorter distances. Most communities implement bike share programs in order to promote alternative transportation or reduce traffic problems, reduce some of our pollution issues, and also to promote a healthy lifestyle. If you didn't know already, there are two different types of bike share programs. One, which is more common, is the docked style bike share program, and then there's also a dockless style bike share program. So I'll go over those now so you have an understanding of what they are. The docked style program is the most common. You've probably seen this in other communities. With this style, bikes are rented from a kiosk at a large docking station, used, and then returned to that station or another. And usually there's several bikes at this station, and they get kind of inserted into a little dock, and that's how they're returned back in. These stations would normally be installed at various points of interest throughout the city. You could be looking at things like the beach or Sullivan Park, Constitution Park, yep, the Tri-Rail, all kinds of different types of locations. Locally, we've seen these types of programs, the docked style specifically in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, many other cities locally and also throughout the country. The largest challenge with a bike share system like this with the docked style is that there is a large capital investment for this infrastructure. So we could be looking at anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 to install one docking station. And then there's also an additional cost for the bikes and annual maintenance of those bikes. Most communities end up...
Ms. Marshall, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't know if you realize there's no visuals.
Yeah, I know. I was told just to talk to you guys, so that's what I'm doing. Most communities usually partner with a sponsor to make these programs happen, but the sponsor does have to make sure that the community meets general requirements, make sure that the community is a good fit for the program. Separate from the docked style program, there is also a dockless style program, and that's exactly what it sounds like. There is no dock with the dockless style program. Does not require any infrastructure, and these programs always utilize bikes that are outfitted with a GPS system on them and also a mechanized wheel lock. So the way it works is you download an app on your phone, and there's a lot going on here. You download an app on your phone, and that app is how you find nearby bikes. And then you can rent that bike on your app. You walk up to it, you scan it, it unlocks the bike, you go. And then once you're finished, you can end wherever you choose. You put the kickstand down, it locks the bike, and it ends your rental. So these bikes can actually be left basically wherever you choose, as long as it's not not obstructing traffic. And just like the docked style station, these dockless style bike shares also utilize points of interest, but just for their distribution sites. Oh, thank you, Eric. This is a docked style station that you're looking at here, but the dockless, as I said, doesn't use any kind of station at all. The challenge with the benefit to a dockless style station is there is no upfront cost. There's no cost at all to the city. There is no infrastructure, so we don't have to worry about paying for any kind of construction. You don't pay for the bikes. The bikes are owned by the company that implements the program. The challenge with the dockless style, which you may have recognized, is that because you can park them anywhere, there is a concern for some sidewalk clutter and lack of organization. But which I'll go over in just a minute, the bikes are always redistributed by the company that runs it, usually in the evening or overnight. There are some local communities that implement the dockless style currently. Not too many because it's a relatively new concept, but Miami Lakes, Miami Shores, South Miami, all communities in Miami-Dade. But they do implement the program pretty successfully, but like I said, it's relatively a new concept. Both programs, as I said, redistribute the bikes based on usage and overnight to make sure that they're not in places they shouldn't be and to make sure that they're in places where maybe there's high demand. If there's high demand at the Tri-Rail in the morning, but there's high demand at the beach in the afternoon, they might redistribute based on that. And then they also all provide usage reports, which helps for the city to track transportation trends and to also plan for biking infrastructure and evaluate sustainability practices. So, as I said, I was asked to bring this before you just as a discussion item because we were approached by a company called Spin, which is a dockless bike share company. And basically, they're interested in starting the program here in the city. And our department, the Department of Sustainable Management, is interested in getting your temperature on where we should go with the program. We wanted you to know what all the different options are. And, we're hoping to receive some direction from you on how you would like us to proceed, whether you would like us to pursue anything at all, or if you do want us to pursue something, which type of style, and potentially where we would have those distribution or docking points throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parnas, and then Vice Mayor Miller, and then Commissioner Battle.
What's the liability to the city?
I would have to get that information for you.
Okay, because I can see if it's a city-run program and somebody gets run over on the bike,
Yep.
that we get sued. I'd like to know, what limits, what responsibility, and what the cost is.
I do know with the dockless style program, the liability is on the company that runs the program. Basically, the only participation that the city has in the dockless style program is that we give them the ability to use our public rights of way to store the bikes. That's really the only risk.
Well, I'd like to hear that from the city attorney, that we have no liability at all.
Well, I think what she's referring to is that if we contract it out, we would we would require in the contract that the company that is providing the service provide an indemnification insurance where we're named insured. I'm just theorizing on that. I haven't gotten into that part, but that most likely would be something we would want to do. To protect ourselves.
Is that it, Commissioner Parnas? Vice Mayor Miller?
Yeah, I think this is an idea whose time has come, particularly because there's no parking at the beach. The stack-up is incredible. Based on your presentation, I don't know which one is better. With the docking, say there was a docking spot up here at City Hall, and you rode down to the beach. Would you put another docking space, or could you just park it and then have that same bike to use to ride back to here where your car might be parked? How would that work?
Can I answer this question? Normally, the rentals are based on a time period. So if you wanted to do that,
like you.
You would slide your credit card at the kiosk, take your bike, and if there was no docking station at the beach, you would still be on time. So if you rented for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever.
So it's something same with the free deal, where it's a time, you're into how many hours you want to have the bike? So if you get it from wherever and you put in 3 hours for a bike, no matter where you park it?
Right.
Or since it doesn't have a docking place, if you parked at one without the docking, could somebody else get on it and take it away, or?
Once you put that kickstand down, you are ending your rental.
So if you parked your car up here, you might not have a bike to drive back to. All right, so we'd have to review the pros and cons of each system.
And the different programs have different rules, so, we've looked into a couple of the different companies, and I know one of the companies offers an opportunity where you can like pause your rental, but it's not allowable for other people to rent. So it would kind of solve that problem.
That seems to make sense to me for a beach circumstance where you want people to take a bike to the beach, you want them to have the bike to go back to their car wherever they parked it. I think both of these things are worth exploring, so we could weigh the pros and cons of either system long-term. The initial one that doesn't cost us all that money sounds very, very interesting, but there's got to be pros and cons of both. I highly suggest, my fellow commission members, we recommend that we pursue this, learning more about it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Battle?
And I am of the opposite opinion. I first would need to know how many, right now, do we know how many accidents we've had in this city between a bike and a motorist, well, whatever, and cars or whatever the case may be. And I'll tell you why. This state and Broward County has a history of building bike lanes or whatever the case may be. They're constructing one right now in front of an area which is in front of the bazaar, where even the walkers get run over by cars, and we've tried to put a light there, and they still have more accidents in District 2 with that particular juncture than any place else in the city. And what the state is doing, the state is coming in and building a bike lane, and because there is no available land, there's not enough. What they have said to us at the MPO is that the bicyclists will have to fend for themselves at that particular juncture when there's a car. If you go down on 10th Street, if you're a bicyclist, okay, you're on a bicycle, when you are turning onto Dixie Highway, you're turning, the bike is going straight. That's a potential, and I've asked the MPO to look at that to see what we can do. And until, in my mind's eye, a person has to be a little bit dense to ride a bike in Broward County, basically. And it's one of those things that at the MPO we are saying maybe we need to, and I know that this is the answer, if we can get FDOT or whomever to put a clear barrier between the bicyclists and the cars, I may be more in tune with whatever. Now, I do think that if we do these things, or we decide as a commission to do this, I would like to see them in those LOCs like the Pioneer Grove, or you get a bike and you ride around Pioneer Grove, and that's fine. You get a bike, you ride on the beach, that's fine. But how are we going to tell people that when they rent one of these bikes that they can't go up and down Hillsborough Boulevard where there is so much traffic and it already has a high propensity for accidents in that area? And for that reason, until I get more data on this, if it came to a vote, I would probably vote no.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Drosky?
I guess I'm somewhere between Vice Mayor Miller and Commissioner Battle. I see Commissioner Battle's points, especially with a bunch of bikes flying around the city and potential liability. But then I see Vice Mayor Miller's point as well, that this is something that, should be looked at further. I wouldn't say no at first glance. So I would like to see from these companies, not necessarily like a formal proposal, but like a prospectus, just to get more information. We got a lot of information in a short period of time. I'd like to do my own independent research into this. But I think it's worth exploring, but I do have some, internal questions I want to, look into first.
Thank you. Commissioner Parnas?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to table this until we have more information.
Well, I think this is just a discussion it's just a discussion at this point, so there's nothing to table. But if you would like more information, I think that's the directive that staff's looking for. I support getting more information on this, the pros and the cons, and find out whether they're regionalized within the city. What does all this mean? But it's certainly worthwhile to get more information on it. I think the dockless, just my first impression is, I think we're going to have a lot of bicycle littering all around, especially by the beach. It'll be a boon for those people that like the bulk trash pickup days, who like to go around and pick up things. Seeing a bunch of bikes laying in the swale, I think they're going to have their trucks full. So I would like some more information myself. City Manager, do you have a comment?
Yes, if I could just have either Ms. Marshall or Mr. Gressick address, there is some pending state legislation. No big surprise there. If you can just discuss that really quick.
Absolutely. Good evening, Chad Gressick, Director of Sustainable Management. There is currently some legislation up in the state capitol regarding the state controlling bike share programs from the state level. So that's another issue we need to delve into a little deeper. Again, the state is looking to control the whole program and basically dictate how the programs work on a local level. So that's something else that we have to see how that progresses through through the state legislature, and we certainly be more than happy to do additional research on that as well as everything else that you mentioned tonight and bring it back at a later date.
Thank you very much.
Item 12 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach.
Andy, before we get into the city manager, something he wants to say?
Yeah, administrative comments.
Oh, I skipped the administrative, yes, I did. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it was changed a couple weeks ago, but just if I could quickly, for the city commission, with the workshops, pending upcoming workshops in April, staff will be reaching out to you to schedule tentatively an emergency management / hurricane workshop, which will be coordinated by Mr. Santucci and Mr. Gressick, just to go over Hurricane Irma and then some of the, I guess, goals that we may have going into this next hurricane season. And then Mr. Gressick was approached by the Marine Advisory Board. They would like to do a workshop with the City Commission on some items dealing with dune vegetation as well as other issues that they're discussing among themselves. And again, those will be sometime in April. We don't have a tentative date, but the location will be at the Hillsborough Technology Community Center. And the time will probably be 7 p.m. because that seems to work the best for everyone. The other thing that I'd like to bring up just quickly is we do have, and it's something that we've had, we did advertise it a while ago. We're going to do another push on this. It's called the Fix-It app. It's something that you can download for your cell phones, whether it's an iPhone or even a Samsung Droid or Galaxy, whatever may be. And with that, you're able to submit pictures or addresses where there may be sidewalk problems, litter, signs down, lights out, things of that nature. And we'll continue to expand that in the future. But that is something that we certainly encourage the public to do. If you snap a picture with your phone, you can submit that and someone will be in touch with you. So again, we're going to re-advertise this to get the public more involved. That's all I have to say. I don't know if Mr. Morotis has.
I do not have any comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, go right ahead.
Item number 12, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach calling on the state of Florida Governor Rick Scott, President Donald Trump, and the federal government to reduce gun violence in America and help prevent future mass shootings by requiring a background check for every firearm sale, supporting the passage of a red flag law, supporting raising the age for legal purchase of firearm magazines and ammunition to 21, supporting the passage of legislation that would keep military-style weapons and high-capacity magazines away from schools, urging the Florida legislature to repeal the punitive punishment of elected officials set forth in Section 790.33 Florida statute, authorizing the city clerk to transmit this resolution.
Commission comments?
Resolution does speak for itself. You can
Okay.
receive some public.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yeah, how would we propose to keep high-capacity magazines away from a school? Why? All right, and what does it mean, the repeal punitive punishments of elected officials set forth in the section? Tell me about that one.
A number of years ago, the legislature, the legislature had the authority, the state legislature, to preempt certain fields of regulation. By preempting, it means the state is saying, this is ours to regulate, and municipalities may not regulate that field. So that means the state has preempted that field for regulation.
I get it.
All right, so the state does that in a number of cases.
Sure.
Now, with regard to uniquely in the area of regulation of firearms and guns and the such, the state, in preempting the field, which they did, chose to go further than any other preemption that we've ever seen. Normally, when the field is preempted, the state says, this area is preempted to the state, and any municipal ordinance contrary to state regulation or is invalid to the extent of the inconsistency. And that means any municipal ordinance is invalid. Well, in preempting the field of firearm regulation, what the state went much further than that. They said, not only are we preempting the field, we are letting you know that any city commissioner who votes for a regulation within this field, contrary to the preemption, is subject to a number of very bad things that can happen to them. One, they can be removed from office. Two, they can be fined $5,000, and they can be subject to damages up to $100,000.
So this is current law? Current law?
Yes. And in defending themselves, the three commissioners who would vote for that cannot be defended by the city and would have to come out of pocket for their own defense. So this is, I call this like the Uber preemption. It's a preemption with a sledgehammer. And again, this particular resolution does not take issue with the fact that the state has the authority to preempt the field. What it does is it takes issue, this particular section only, I'm only speaking to that issue, with the fact that the preemption was draconian in nature and did certain things which we believe that the legislature does not have the authority to do. So that's why they talk about the punitive punishment, and I tried to describe it.
Okay, you know what, I thank you for explaining that. This all had to be lumped together, though, right? 'Cause
Well, it is what a number of municipalities are adopting this to try to cover a number of areas, and there may be certain things that people like and don't like about it, but that's...
My understanding is we have to have background checks to purchase a weapon anyway. So, and what, and there's like 300 million guns in America already? So, I think, I certainly could support what you just talked about. But I'd like to have more details on the red flag law, what qualifies for the red flag. I understand the idea of the current recent case where that person should have been, his guns taken away with all the red flags. But I mean, I don't know what that concept is exactly, but I wish this wasn't all lumped together like this. It's just my comment.
Commissioner Parnas?
Saturday night, I had the honor of having dinner with 2 tablesful 20 Parkland students who attended a dinner I attended. And although as a commission and as a commissioner, I cannot vote for a law because the state's taken that right away from the city. But what I can do, the same with the marijuana law, is get it on the ballot via petition. We probably need 100,000 signatures as an individual, not as a commissioner, to get it on the ballot in 2020 to ban assault weapons, large magazines. And I'm making every effort. I'll probably have a copy of the state-approved petition to get it on the ballot. It's being done by a constitutional expert and writer and author, Don Cleveland. And I will support it as an individual voter, as anybody else can. It's unfortunate that this commission, the Broward County Commission, or any other commission in this state, cannot vote their conscience as far as assault weapons are concerned. That would be against the law. But citizens, we can get it on the ballot, then the voters will speak, and the legislation has the legislators that keep turning down bans on assault weapons will have no power anymore to do so. So that's where I stand as an individual voter and as a human being. As a human being, I don't feel anybody should own assault weapons except the military. And I will, as a civilian, do what I can to get that on the ballot so our kids can be safer. Not safe, but safer.
Thank you, Commissioner. There is one speaker from the public who wanted to speak on this item. If there's anyone else that can speak after this person, Glenn Sullivan.
Glenn Sullivan, 2377 Deer Creek Trail, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I agree with most of this. As a matter of fact, I believe the legislature is going to pass a great majority of it. I don't agree with repealing the punitive punishments of elected officials set forth in Section 790.33 for two reasons. The first being, if every city, county in Florida has their own laws on guns, isn't that going to be a disservice to the law-abiding gun holder? I mean, he's going to need a map to try to figure out what city or county he can drive in based on the myriad of laws that these counties and cities enact. And the second issue is, I don't think this city or the county has any right in getting into constitutional rights of the people. So, again, I agree, we need to do something, but we don't need to have a myriad of laws throughout the state.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public care to speak?
Maura Chilton, 1101 Southeast 5th Court. Although I do believe in some of what this ordinance has to say, I also believe that more measures than just gun control are needed. And therefore, I'm in favor of Governor Rick Scott's plan he submitted to the GOP state legislature that includes raising the age on gun sales to 21, banning the sale of bump stock attachments that enable rifles to rapid fire, and most of all, what I believe, is spending at least $450 million on mental illness and hardening schools with metal detectors, bulletproof glass, and other enhanced security. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the public care to comment on this item?
Richard Rosenzweig, 97 in front of me in Deerfield. This article has nothing to do with Second Amendment. This has to do with public safety. And everything in this thing, with the exception of what the governor's trying to do, should be impacted and done. The issue is assault on banned weapons is not new. 1994 saw a ban on assault weapons that lasted until 2004, was allowed to sunset instead of being connected and let to go on. So assault weapons have been banned before and should be now. As has been stated, there's no reason for them to have an assault weapon to go hunting unless they're hunting people. I'm sure that a lot of people have, and has been raised by the commission, the state legislature, to do and impact any law that prevents us from exercising our rights as citizens also crosses over the Second Amendment as far as we're concerned. The Second Amendment only talks about having a regulated militia. It says nothing about individual arms sales and armed handling, and that is something we should have as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public care to comment?
Terry Scott, 624 Northwest 2nd Way. Let's think about it, Deerfield. Parkland is only but 7 to 8 miles from us. At any time, one of our 6 elementary schools could have been hit or can be. We have but one high school that could be targeted at any time, one middle school that can be targeted at any time, and 2 private schools, one charter that could be targeted at any time. We need to think about it. Something has to be put in place for our own safety of our kids. Yesterday it was Parkland. Who's to say tomorrow it's not Deerfield? Our parks are very open in the afternoon with our own kids running around after school programs. Who's to say that one won't try it on our grounds? We better think now. We better look at this now. We better seek
wise counsel that we make the best decision concerning our city and its welfare and well-being. Protect our citizens now. I believe if Parkland had the chance, they would say the same words. Let's put something in place now that tomorrow we may not mourn no one's death by any such gun. I do go along with the last speaker. Why would you need an AK-47 or 15 unless you are trying to shoot animals? I don't think we have no lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, running around Deerfield. So let's put something in place that will protect our people, that will make sure that our students and our parks are as safe as they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public here to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close the public to be heard on this. Any other commission comments? Vice Mayor Miller?
You know, this says, would keep military-style weapons and high-capacity magazines away from schools. They should be kept out of schools. And what does that mean, away from schools? So if you drive by and there's one in your trunk? And what is a high-capacity magazine? I have a 9mm handgun with a 19 round clip capacity. So I can have 3 of those clips in my pockets. No backpack, no anything. In my pockets. 57 rounds. With one in the chamber, that's 58 rounds. So we're making this like it's all about military-style weapons, where I have a semi-automatic. I hear people in the public talking about banned semi-automatics. I hear people not talking about things. They have no idea what they're talking about. Sure, a bump stock turns a semi-automatic into a machine gun, and I could see banning that for sure. But every time I've ever seen a purchase of a firearm, it requires a background check. So I think this is already in place. I'd like to find out what the red flag law is to protect the innocent, although in this last case, we sure wish there was some reason that they could have compensated this man that was mentally unstable, his guns away, especially when the people said this is an accident about to happen. He was threatening to kill people in a school. I wish there was some way we could deal with that. But there's parts of this that are like, what is a high-capacity magazine, and what does it mean away from schools? That should not be in schools at all. At all. Any kind of gun. Revolver. Any kind of gun. Single-shot 22. Any kind of gun should not be in school. But there's vagueness in here that might make people feel good that they're doing something. We should protect our schools. And we should look into the mental health issue, and we should, our police should follow up on leads. And the FBI should follow up on leads. That would have prevented this tragedy a couple of miles away from us. But this is a little bit vague for my mind.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Parnas, and then Commissioner Battle.
Guns are part of the problem. They're not the whole problem. We do have mental health issues. We have children growing up that are angry. There is a problem. That's the first thing we have to note. We have a gun problem. They're easy to get. I bought my first gun in Florida in the parking lot of a gun show. No questions asked. Cash on the barrel head. It's still being done. That loophole should be closed. 2, we need extensive background checks before people are allowed to carry a firearm. For 10 years, Congress passed an anti-assault weapon ban. It expired. Congress did not see fit to renew it. When they first came to Florida, they put a 10-shot magazine for a pistol semi-automatic pistol into place rather than 13. I believe it's now been expired. It's more than one problem. And when people talk to me about the Second Amendment, I guess I'm going to buy a tank and put it in front of my building. However, it's against the law. Machine guns are against the law. Why? If I have a right to bear arms, where does it say in the Constitution I should be limited? The answer to that is the United States Supreme Court. They have ruled that certain restrictions on semi-automatic weapons, if voted by a state, is appropriate. Try to get an automatic weapon in New York State. They, in Connecticut, and I think 2 other states, have put bans on semi-automatic weapons, assault weapons, and that's been upheld by the Supreme Court. Period. In order to get a carry permit in New York, you pretty much need 2 congressmen and a senator to recommend you before you'll be allowed to carry a concealed weapon. It's not going to stop it all, but it's a step in the right direction. We have to urge our legislators to get off their butts and do something. The Senate in Florida this week wouldn't pass a moratorium on assault weapons for 2 years. We're not talking about banning now, just a moratorium on sales. Nobody's coming for your gun if you have one. But when it comes to the mentally ill, why should we make it that easy to walk into a store and buy a semi-automatic rifle? People who are restricted because they're dangerous from buying an airplane ticket and flying can now buy a gun. Federally, if you're mentally ill, you can buy a gun. Why? This has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. An adult has a right to bear arms. But the Supreme Court says the states and the federal government have a right to restrict what kind of weapons you have, and have done so, and it's again upheld by the Supreme Court. So if you believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe in the Second Amendment, I've owned a gun for years. In my old age, I got rid of them because I realized that some 22-year-old is faster on the draw, and I don't want to be brave and stupid at the same time. When you're carrying a gun, you get very brave. More times than not, you'll get shot before you shoot somebody else. So do we have a right to be protected? Yes. Do we have a right to protect our children? Yes. And it's not just a gun problem, it's a whole integrated problem that must be solved. Mental health issues, police training, FBI proper training to follow leads. There's so much of a myriad of things that have to be done. And yet our legislature thinks porn magazines are more dangerous than guns. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Parnas. Commissioner Battle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be the first one to tell you that I don't know anything about guns. What I do know is that they kill a lot of people. And to my esteemed colleague, you're one of the ones that bought your gun legally. In my district, I would venture to say more than 50% probably got those guns illegally, and therefore they did not go through any background checks. We don't know what their mental capacity is, one way or the other. And so we have a duty to do something to protect not only ourselves but our children. As far as that red flag is concerned, Mr. Attorney, I believe it has to do with the police being able to confiscate, I think that's pronounced it correctly, guns from those people who are violent. And I want to support that. I want to support anything that can keep our children and our other relatives and friends safe. If we don't do anything, it keeps happening. It didn't just start with Sandy Hook. It started long before then. It has not stopped since Sandy Hook. And if we don't do something now, when are we going to do something? Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Miller, we've already gone to you a couple times. If you bear with me a moment.
I'll be very brief.
No, before we get to you, if you bear with me for a moment.
Yeah.
This is mainly, all this is right now is a this is a request put forward by this. It's not an actionable item in the fact that it is more us taking a position than it is us actually having the ability to do something ourselves. We're asking others to. I understand that there might be some language in there that it is all encompassing. Some of it is a little vague and different. And I'll read to you something that was sent to the city, to me in particular, a proclamation from the League of Women Voters. The Broward League of Women Voters asked us to do this proclamation. Their language is a little bit different. So there are some other options out there if we want to take a stand in putting forward something that is more, I don't want to say ceremonial, but shows where our support is. But they are asking that a state ban on all semi-automatic assault weapons and large capacity feeding devices, comprehensive universal background checks, and ensuring that the state provides all relevant records to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NICS, and blocking irresponsible gun proposals such as campus carry, open carry, and expansion to the stand your ground defense. There are other forms of action that are out there, and that language might be more specific to what we might be inclined to support. Truth of the matter is there's no magic potion to solve this problem, and whatever is put forward, nothing is foolproof, because quite frankly there's far too many fools out there. And whatever we put forward or anyone puts forward, I don't think us sitting here debating our opinions on what the Second Amendment is and gun laws, we are somewhat, not somewhat, we are completely handcuffed and able to put something forward in our city. And it's interesting when people talk about, well, it would be very difficult depending on what city you're in to know what the laws are. That applies to a wide variety of things, no matter where you're at, whether it's gun laws, whether it be signage. You move into a city and they've got a different sign ordinance, what you have in your previous city. It's hard to know what all the different laws are in different areas. I don't like the fact that they strip away our ability to have home rule and to put forward ordinances that support our community and our city while they're dictating it from the north part of the state. I don't think that's quite right, and that's a continuing assault we have. If we're looking to, I'm going to ask for some direction here. Either we're going to move forward with putting this out there and voting on it as is, or do we want to revisit this and perhaps change some of the language just to move the discussion along? Vice Mayor Miller, do you want to comment on that, or do you want to make your other comment?
As my neighbor here said, and Commissioner from number 3 said, I empathize. My heart breaks for the families. It absolutely does. But I think literally both of you have actually made a case. Literally, your opening statement and Gloria's opening statement about 50%, just an estimate, are probably bought illegally. And you said, I bought something illegally in the parking lot. No background checks, no what. All I'm going to say is, regardless of what anybody legislates, illegal criminals don't follow the rules. They're going to get a gun. And if they're hell-bent on getting to it, we need to protect the school. We need the bulletproof windows. We need the metal detectors. And we need the police to follow up on leads. You see something, you say something. But to legislate something that criminals are not going to follow, and it's criminal or mentally insane people that are creating these problems, I think you both made a case that it's the criminally insane or the criminals that are not going to follow any legislator, whether it come from the state, the federal, or our own city. So that's, it seems like we're doing something, but I think in effect, for the criminal, we're doing nothing.
To try to move this along, I'm going to ask for someone to make a decision here, whether we move forward with the language existing, we don't do anything, or we look for new language to put something forward as a show of where we sit regarding this issue.
I make a motion that we pass this resolution as is.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Battle?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosky?
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
No.
Mayor Gantz?
Yes. Comments by Mayor and City Commissioners. I'm going to start with Commissioner Drosky. No, I'm sorry. I should start with the City Manager and the City Attorney, especially while the City Attorney's trying to run out the door.
We did ours under departmental business.
Just want to check. Okay, no problem. Commissioner Drosky. Andy's going to get me for that one, by the way.
I first have a question for staff. I've noticed for like the last week or so, the speed humps on 2nd Ave have been removed. Is there a reason why?
Yes, if you'd like, I can have Mr. Good come down to address that, but those speed cushions, we did receive several complaints. Those were something that a previous elected official did request and the City Commission did put in. It does go against traffic calming policy. It's something that we're reevaluating whether or not it makes sense to put those somewhere else along there, but with that, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thomas Good, Environmental Services Director. So removing those speed cushions on 2nd Avenue actually put us in compliance with our policy that was approved by the Commission. Those were tested, those speed bumps were tested in that community, in that area for evaluation, so we can work further to determine if we're going to bring the policy back to the city, and you all make a determination as to whether you want to update the policy to allow speed bumps on that right-of-way.
Okay. I was just curious because they've been gone and they've been there for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think they were only there for less than 2 years, actually.
And lastly, I just want to thank you, Mr. Good. Thank the mayor for his kind words at the beginning of the meeting tonight. We did lose 4 individuals, 3 from District 2, and my deepest sympathy and condolences go to my colleague, Commissioner Battle, for her brother, as well as for Reverend Ford and Mr. Benefiel. But Mr. Bogner was a resident of District 4 who worked for the city for a long, long time. And upon his retirement, didn't really go into retirement. He volunteered for the city. He worked for the Historical Society. He also worked on the caboose right out front here. And if it wasn't for his efforts, that probably wouldn't be a reality today. So there's 4 individuals that will deeply be missed in the city, and I'm going to end my comments just remembering them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Parnas?
Gloria, you have my deepest sympathy in the loss of your brother. I will be there tomorrow to support you and your family. I love Deerfield. I really do. This is my city and has been since 1989. I've lived here. And I want to see it grow and prosper. I want to keep our taxes down because I have to pay them too. So it's an honor for me to serve. And I appreciate those who are allowing me to serve. We have a pretty terrific board up here. And I have to compliment the mayor and the city manager on how they run our city. There's always room for improvement, and I know they seek to be the best that they can be. So with that, I say thank you to both of you.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Commissioner Bow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me just say thanks to all of you for your kind words of sympathy. And it's been a hard week and a half, but tomorrow we'll end at 10 o'clock at Pine View Cemetery. And this was a simple ceremony of life for my brother. And if you will, Mr. City Manager and Mr. Good, if you would take a look at the 20th Street and Southwest 2nd, actually that's Joe's district, but they were at the office when I went in yesterday. It seems that they're having a problem with their speed bump. The lady who came said it's too low. It needs to be higher because the cars are just zipping across it. And they're also having a problem down in that area with the 18-wheelers that drive through the neighborhood when they can't get up Dixie Highway or Sample. That's their way to get to the other street that they want to get to. And it's really messing up the streets in that area, those 18-wheelers. So please take a look at that for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, Vice Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Good. I know people have been talking to me about Southeast 12th Avenue, south of the Circle on 4th, between 4th and 10th. They were wishing there'd be some speed control in that area. So maybe what we've taken off 2nd Avenue, we could maybe think about Southeast 12th Avenue. Secondly, and there's some that don't like that either. I also want to say to my commission, even though I had some problem with specific words, I absolutely agree with your sentiment, and I back your vote. You know, I'm saying I'm with you in spirit, even though I had problems with certain lines and that thing. So I understand what we're trying to do, and I'm certainly for you, and I walk out of here united with you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a couple of comments. One, I noticed with our sign-in sheet, just for clarification, so this is really meant just to provide some order when we have an issue that's in front of us. So if there's several people, as opposed to what we've seen in the past where we have people get up and then sit down because it's all about jockeying for position sometimes. That way we can read it in an orderly manner. Anybody can come up. This not only applies for our public portion to be heard on any items that aren't on the agenda, it also applies for any items that are on the agenda. So that's what the purpose of this is. Doesn't mean that if you didn't fill one of these out, you don't get a chance to speak. You'll just have to wait to the end as we go through the list of everybody who has signed up to speak. Just trying to provide a little bit more order, which I think has helped us move things along. The one thing I would like to have changed on this form, though, says all discussions are limited to 3 minutes. We do have something on our books that allows the mayor to extend it for 1 minute if the speaker requests it. So if we could add that on there, unless you've printed a whole bunch of these, we'll make sure we don't want to waste paper, kill any more trees. We talked briefly about this, but the state legislature, I don't want to say they're our enemies, but there is a lot of things going on in Tallahassee, and every year it seems to get worse and worse. And the assault on home rule for cities in this state is unbelievable. And they're truly trying to limit our ability as a municipality to put in place ordinances that are based on what is in the best interest of our citizens. And it is, to me, very shocking how down to the minutia they're trying to get, and preempting us even on some things we've already passed that works for our city that they want to take away. I encourage the city. You might have criticisms of things that we put in place, but I can assure you we are the front line when it comes to government, and we are certainly more in tune to what goes on in our community than someone that's sitting up in other areas of this state. If the legislatures in the state of Florida are so concerned about decisions that we make and transparency, it's amazing how they pass the Sunshine Law that doesn't apply to them but applies to us on the municipal level. We certainly have much more transparency here on the local level than you do up in the halls of Tallahassee. What they're trying to do consistently is disappointing and it's frustrating, and I encourage every citizen to pay attention and to reach out to their state leaders to make sure that they don't strip away the local level's right to enact ordinances and laws that are in the best interest, because every situation is unique. And some things are very specific to the municipality. What applies here in Deerfield Beach may not be a match for areas in the Panhandle or in Central Florida, but certainly we should have the ability to put things in place that allow us to do what is in the best interest of our citizens and not be at the mercy of what the legislatures in Tallahassee put upon us. So I ask all of you to reach out and reach out to your state representatives and tell them not to take away home rule for your local elected officials. Whether you like them or not, we certainly have, we are certainly closer to you and much more involved in the day-to-day and affect your lives certainly more than what the state of Florida and the state legislatures do. So I ask for that assistance. Other than that, looking for to conclude the meeting. We have a motion. Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
What's the address of the park you were talking about?